My name is Anna, and this is my testimony. I was born March 28, 2003, to my mother and father. At first, we weren't really in contact with my father, but when he found out he was my dad, he began to see me every now and then. And he'd bring gifts and see me, and then he'd leave, because he did travel a lot, and to see my other sisters and brothers as well. Life was normal up until my sister was diagnosed with a mental illness, and things started to get kind of rough with the family, and it wasn't so normal. Things started to kind of fall apart from there. When I turned 8, I moved with my dad in Chicago, and I lived with them for about 5 years. In the first few years, it was pretty great. He'd still buy things like he did when I was younger, and we spent time together. We went and traveled to downtown Chicago, and we went to New York, and we had a lot of fun. But suddenly things started to change. He started to get a little more aggressive, and he began to hurt me. Our relationship was strained. It was difficult for him and I. I began to rebel against him as well, and I began to show hatred towards him, and things didn't go very well, and our relationship broke apart from that point. Then eventually I was moved back with my mom, and I just forgot all about that I had learned. I forgot that my dad had read me the Bible, and I had fell in love with God. I had fallen in love with all the things he had done and his creation. And when I moved to the new house, I had forgotten all about that. And since I was bullied in Chicago and beaten up, I decided to just start defending myself. I got into 2 fights, and I was suspended for a week. Things started to change for me. I started to feel feared, and I liked it. And I liked being rebellious. And then I graduated 8th grade about a year later, and I went on to high school. At that point, we had moved to new schools. I was bound to have a clean slate and start new. I would start making friends instead of having people fear me. I met new friends, and I had met someone from another state, and she and I had begun hanging out a lot. And I found out that she smoked, and so I picked up that habit too, and I began smoking as well. It made me feel cool, and so she had asked me if I've ever done it before, and I just said I did, just so I seemed cool, but I later realized it was not. And I also began dating, and I got attached to people, and I had a lot of friends. Then things also started to change again. I had gotten a job, and I got very busy, and I'd still smoke. And eventually my mom came to me before my birthday, and she said, "We're moving." And this was a shock for me. I don't know what had possessed her to move us to Florida, but we packed our stuff up for vacation and looked for houses, but we found nothing. Then we came back discouraged, and we forgot all about it until my father mentioned it. He said, "Why don't we move to Florida?" And I still thought this was a crazy idea. But nevertheless, we moved a few months. I stayed the summer with my sister, and my parents moved there. They moved there without a house, so for like a week or 2 they were homeless, and we hadn't found a house. Over the summer I had been doing whatever I wanted to do, and I had begun smoking more and more and more each day. It really didn't affect me, and I just did what I did. Then eventually my mom picked me up, and we went to Florida. I was upset. I had missed my friends I thought I had, and I had missed the person that I thought I loved. And it was rough for me. Then when I had met a girl the day we moved in, and her and I hung out for the summer, and we did fun things. We went swimming and things like that, and I have a lot of memories with her. But not only that, I also was still smoking, sometimes even with her. At this point, I began making excuses as to why I needed it, why I was using it, and I told myself I can stop at any time. I don't need it. Well, I decided after a while that I had it good. So I continued to do what I did, and my family relationship started to feel it as well. I began listening to rock music, and I began being a little more rebellious. I can remember seeing my mother cry because she was upset with me. And I had started to ruin my relationship with my parents, and I began ruining the relationship with my sister. I'd push her away, and when she'd come to talk to me, I told her to go away. I didn't want anything to do with her. I just wanted to live my life. However, I started feeling sad. I quit. I thought that maybe the smoking was part of it, so I quit smoking. And I could feel the distancing between me and my family. So I quit because I was constantly having to hide it from them. I'd do it while they were asleep or while they were away. I even hid it from my sister. And so I continued to do it, and then I just finally had enough and I quit. At that point, the sadness really started to set in. Each day I'd just lay in my bed and cry. I wouldn't do anything else, and I didn't want to go anywhere. My mother would ask me what's wrong with me, and I'd just brush her off and say, I'm fine. Eventually she had enough, and she got upset with me. Why won't you tell me? And I just told her I was fine, and I didn't want to talk about it. I just made up some sort of excuse and just said I'm fine. While I was at my father's house, when he hurt me, I had began to cut myself because I believed I didn't belong on earth, and that people had the right to bully me at school. They bullied me because I was the only white girl in the school. It was pretty tough for me at that point. All the childhood memories and things began to hit me really hard. I could feel the devil pushing me down. I began to have thoughts like I didn't belong there, and that I had no purpose on earth. So that began and went on for a while. I was very depressed. But one day I had decided to go on outside, and I met a girl whose brother I had been on the bus with and went to school with, so I knew him. She had invited me to a youth rally, and I thought, sure, I couldn't stand this any longer. I knew that if I had stayed any longer, I probably would have killed myself. So I just decided to go. That Friday night, we went to Ocala and we went to the youth rally, and it was pretty fun. The preacher was doing knife throwing and lassoing, and I was just couldn't help but think, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And so I still have videos from that day. Then it began to the preaching, and I'm reminded of the passage of the shepherd who left the 99 sheep to go find that one. And the preacher let us know that we were that one. And I began to feel that I had gone astray from the God that I knew, who I had learned from, who was taught to me. And that love for God came back. As we prayed that night, I felt the conviction on my heart. I didn't know what it was at the time, but tears flooded in my eyes, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know why I was crying, but I knew something needed to change. So my friend invited me again that Wednesday, and I went. And my sister went with me, and my preacher knew that there was something we needed to take care of, because the youth pastor's wife had noticed it, and she had asked me what's wrong that night, but I didn't know what to tell her. I'm pretty sure I just made up some sort of excuse. But that night, the youth pastor's wife showed me a track and showed me that my sin separated me from God. And I felt that because when I prayed to him, I didn't hear a word, and it felt like I was talking to myself. And that wedge, he couldn't hear my prayers because of my sin. And my sin, I began to recall my sin as I realized that I know I'm a sinner, and I had gone too far from God. And so I decided to put my trust in Jesus that night. that nothing else was going to save me but Him. And so I put my trust in Jesus, and things didn't change automatically. I still did the things that I did, and I still listened to the music that I did. My sister began realizing a change after I started throwing away my things that had brought those sinful habits into my life. I got rid of my music. I got rid of my clothes. I got rid of all the things that reminded me of the sins that I had committed. Since then, I have surrendered to go to Bible college. This fall, I've decided to graduate early so I could go there. I have also surrendered that if God wanted to take me to the mission field, He would. And since then, I've been going to church each day, and I don't feel that empty and loneliness anymore. I don't lay in my bed and cry anymore. And every time I think about what God has brought me from, I can't help but praise Him. And He healed my wounds, and I know He can heal yours.